final battle of Mount Hyjal is about to begin, and Malfurion has one final gambit to stop the onslaught. So don't forget to like and subscribe and come, take a seat by the fire. Medivh, now known as the Oracle, had gathered all he could. As unlikely allies as they make, all the races of Azeroth have had to put aside their differences and work together. Orc and human, elf and troll. For Archimonde and his army of darkness were marching upon the World Tree itself. The fortifications were hastily made ready. They had little time left now. Each leader would take their forces and bar the demon army's path. Jaina was the first to hold the line. Her forces were not just humans of Lordaeron, but stalwart dwarves from both the mountains of Khazmodan and the rolling hills of the Airy Peak. High elven survivors from Kael'thas and all that remained of the 7th Legion. They held as long as they could, but wave after wave of the unending horde eventually wore them down, these formidable fighters, and forced them to cede their position to the demon armies. It would be up to Thrall and his forces now to hold the ascent at bay, but the war chief would not stand alone. The orcs and their allies, the Darkspear trolls, would now be aided by the Tauren. They had come to repay their blood debt to the horde. They would fight. One Tauren, Hamul Runetotem, was inspired by the druids that he observed. This set him on a path to bring its practices of druidism to his own people. The horde was barely holding on. He sent out a group of veteran warriors to hold key positions, but they were eventually defeated, having only one survivor, an orc named Broxagar. This earned him legendary status within the horde's ranks, but their strength would not be enough. Even they sounded the call to retreat. Once more, it was the Night Elves that stood alone against annihilation. They fought with a relentless fury. They would not give a single inch to the demons. They had only to buy Malfurion as much time as they could, and they did just that. The druid gathered the wisps around the tree, too many to count. All at once, the way to the tree was made clear. Archimonde, in his hubris, thought he had won, as he took those fateful steps in the last ascent through the tree's roots. He paid no mind to the small wisp spirits that had gathered, as they waited patiently for Malfurion to sound the call. Once the demon lord was in position, he blew the horn of Cenarius. All at once the wisps channeled their energy into the tree, igniting its ancient wards and magic. It unleashed a devastating explosion that shook Azeroth to its core. It vaporized Archimonde and his invading army instantly. The mortal defenders had won, but it had come at a steep cost. The tree was greatly weakened, and the Night Elves had lost their immortality. Sacrifice for the greater good, most of them thought, despite the prospects of old age and sickness. This battle marked the end of the Third War. Once again, it had changed the landscape of the world, this time forging new alliances and embittered enemies. Thrall would found the city of Orgrimmar, nestled in a valley in the sands of Durotar, and Jaina would lead her survivors in creating a port town named Theramore that would become a key strategic location for the Alliance. It was during all of this that Arthas had played the part of dutiful soldier well, but had long been subverting the Legion's power by influencing the dead to not follow the orders of their demon masters. Unbeknownst to most, this had slowed the demon army greatly. It was in fact Arthas himself who told Illidan how to harness the power of the skull and defeat Tichondrius, which the power-hungry elf accepted without question. After Archimonde's defeat, he was free, but greatly weakened, and would in all haste travel back to the Eastern Kingdoms. Kil'jaeden was outraged by the betrayal of the Lich King. Ner'zhul had grown far too powerful for the demons to control now. He would have to be destroyed before he grew even more in power. Once again, the Eredar would come to Illidan. He was to be given one final chance to pay his debts and serve the Legion. He was to destroy Arthas and the Lich King himself, something Illidan reluctantly agreed to. He had a plan, but it would not be so simple. His former jailer, Maiev Shadowsong, was still hunting him. He gathered what allies he could from a group of dark satyr to even the now transformed snake-like highborn that called themselves Naga. He would need a powerful artifact found on the Broken Isles, the Eye of Sargeras. He would eventually retrieve the object, but Maiev had brought reinforcements, and Illidan was once again forced to retreat across the seas to Lordaeron. With the swiftness of a demon, he travelled through the dead forests, the Silver Pine, and the city of Dalaran itself. Here he began to use the Eye to conjure a terrible storm in Northrend. It would melt the ice and destroy the throne of the Lich King, ending his power on Azeroth. But the spell was so devastating, it was pulling the land itself apart. Malfurion had sensed this, and would join Maiev in putting an end to Illidan, once and for all. So close, and yet it was not enough. Illidan was interrupted, and he knew the Legion would hunt him now too, for his failure. He took his allies and escaped, using one of the rifts left behind in Archimonde's summoning, escaping to the now shattered landscape of Outland, an alien world wrought by fell energy. Here, on this world, he could begin his own journey and prepare for the reckoning that was to come. Lady Bash and the Naga would aid him at the old god's command. Kael'thas Sunstrider would also aid Illidan, after he promised the now-named Blood Elves a way to cure their magical addictions. They would assault the Legion's heart of power on this world, the Black Temple, and depose its leader, the Pit Lord Magtheridon. He picked up one more unlikely ally along the way, Akama, former Draenei, and now a Broken, who would repay his debt to Illidan for saving them. This new formidable alliance won them control of the Black Temple and Outland itself. But the victory celebration would not last long, as the skies darkened and cracked, and the terrible visage of the Eredar Lord himself appeared before them. With a smirk, he scoffed at their attempts to avoid the Legion's wrath. Arthas was battling once more in the Plague Lands of the Eastern Kingdoms. The Dreadlords who ruled there did not know of Archimonde's destruction at first, but would quickly realise what had happened once Arthas returned to consolidate his power. However, during one of these engagements, Arthas would suffer a seizure as the Lich King himself cried out in his mind. Illidan's spell had diminished the Lich King's power greatly. He would need to escape the Dreadlord's grasp and make his way to Northrend, to return to the Throne of Ice once more, before it was too late. But Arthas did not foresee the consequences of this diminished power, as he bent his entire will on reaching Northrend once more. The willful dead had begun to shake control and break free of the mental vice grip of the Lich King. Among these was the vengeful banshee, Sylvanas. All her thoughts were twisted to rage as she laid a trap. When Arthas was attacked and weakened by the Dreadlords, she spirited him away, only to shoot a paralyzing arrow that wounded, but did not kill him, and he managed to escape. As he sailed the frozen seas, kil'jaeden was making one final threat to Illidan and his allies. He would gift Outland to Illidan and leave it alone if he was to destroy Arthas before he could reach the throne and let the Lich King finally die. Or he would never stop hunting Illidan and destroy his new sanctuary, leaving the demon hunter little choice. As Arthas and what remained of his undead army arrived on the shores of the frozen continent, they were greeted by Kael'thas and the Blood Elves, who had come to seek revenge. They would not let this monster reach the throne, and all of his crimes would have been for nothing. Just when hope was looking lost, he met a crypt lord named Barak. He and Arthas would make the journey through the ancient spider kingdom that snaked beneath the ground. The journey would come fraught with its own dangers, for not all of the horrors that infested this dark and forgotten realm were under the Lich King's control. But through skill and much ingenuity, they made it through to the other side. Naga, elves and demons waited for them, however, assaulting them over and over until finally Illidan himself drew near. The last obstacle was here at the Court of Bones. He would face the hunter in single combat. The battle was short-lived but intense as two immensely powerful beings clashed. But Illidan made the first mistake and Arthas took advantage of it, slicing open his chest and leaving him to bleed in the snow. Arthas travelled through the winding icy steps to the throne itself and the dread armour encased within. Finally, sword and armour reunited. Arthas ignored the screams of his memories and placed the helmet on his head. Finally, they were one. Arthas was now the Lich King, and from here he would test the living to perfect his army of death. But his reign is only just beginning. Thanks for all the support, everyone. I really mean it. Stay safe out there and don't forget to come back anytime.